निम्रा वो प्लीज बंद कर दें, दरवाजा बंद कर दें. All right, everyone, let's begin. So we're starting. Today we will be doing some relatively simple concepts. There's going to be some repetition of what we have done before as well. Now, since these are relatively simple concepts, I'll be quicker than how we've been going before. So थोड़ा सा जल्दी होएगा. There are three different topics that we want to discuss today. So we'll do things slightly quicker. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we want to do is quadratic equations. Okay. Now we need to be able to solve quadratic equations, right? So for example, if you have an equation like this, x squared plus 5x minus 14 equal to 0, you need to be able to solve this equation. There are multiple methods that you have for solving equations like these. You can factorize them. You can use quadratic formula, right? You can use any of them. In this case, if you had to factorize this, factors of 14 that you can use here are 7 and 2. All of you are familiar with this. And let's going to be quick about this. X squared plus 7x minus 2x minus 14 equal to 0. You take x common from the first two terms, that gives you x plus 7. Take minus 2 common from the next two terms, and you get x plus 7 from this as well. There are two factors that you get, x minus 2 into x plus 7. X equals 2 or x equals minus 7. These are the solutions that you get for this equation, right? All of you know how to do this. Now, on SAT, since you have calculator available, you have Desmos available as well. If you just had to find solutions to an equation like this, I would not recommend that you do this process. You should still know this process because sometimes you need to convert something to a factorized form. For that, you should know the process of how to actually factorize a quadratic function. But if it's just that you have to find the solutions of an equation, you should just use the function on a calculator. We've discussed this before, right? So you go to menu, if you have this version, or so if you have this version, you can go to number 9, and then on the right of that, you have equation, polynomial, degree 2. Just input the coefficients, 1, 5, minus 14, press equal to sign, and then you get the x-intercepts. One is 2, and the other is -7. Okay, just solve it directly like this. And this is the same process that you can use for finding the turning point of a quadratic function as well. If you just press the equal to button again here, you will see the x coordinate of the turning point. Okay, press the equal to button again, you get the y coordinate of the turning point. So you can find the turning point and x-intercepts of a quadratic function directly from this. Alternatively, you could use Desmos as well for this. Just sketch the function on Desmos. You would have this available. Just put that function here, y equals x squared plus 5x, x squared plus 5x minus 14. This is the quadratic function. You can see the x-intercepts, one is -7 here and the other is 2. You can just sketch the graph, look at the x-intercept from there. You can also look at the turning point from here. This is the turning point. Click on that. That's -2.5 and -20.25. Okay? So you can use Desmos for this as well to make things quicker. All right? So this is one thing that you need to know, how to factorize quadratic functions and solve them. If factorization does not work, or factorization is difficult, this is the alternative. You can use the quadratic formula, right? All of you know how to do this. Just input values in this, you can find the result. Okay. Now, let's have a look at this example quickly. Now, this is where you would actually need to use the formula, right? You cannot solve it directly on your calculator. It says one solution to this equation can be written like this, where n is a constant. What's the value of n? Now, you would have to apply the quadratic formula and see what you get from this. So when you apply quadratic formula, you get x equals minus b, minus into minus 10, plus minus, square root of minus 10 whole squared, minus 4 into 2 into 3 whole divided by 2 times 2. Now let's simplify this. You see you've got 10 outside right now. You had 5 here. Keep that in mind. We're not just looking for what is inside the square root. We first have to convert this to 5 as well. We can't compare them otherwise. Let's simplify this. Inside the square root, we get 100 minus 24, right? 100 minus 24, which is 76, divided by 4. This is what we have. Just give me a second. Now, you want 2 there in the denominator and 5 as the first term there. You can simplify this. You can put this on your calculator. Under root 76, just put that on your calculator. Under root 76, this simplifies it for you and gives you 2 under root 19. Okay, now you can take 2 common from the numerator and it gets cancelled and you're left with, let me actually just show that step to you as well in case you get confused. 2 into 5 plus minus square root of 19 divided by 4. And now 2 and 2 get cancelled and you get 2. Here is the result. 5 plus minus under root 19 over 2. Now, one of the solutions is in this form. So you can say 5 minus under root 19 over 2. What's the value of n that you've got? The value of n is 19. Now, some calculators can do this for you as well. So if you have ClassWiz, I think this will do it for you as well. It can give you an exact answer as well. I'm not sure about the earlier versions. You can try this, try that. If somebody has a calculator which is not ClassWiz, any other version that can solve equations, you can check that if it works for you. On this calculator, it works. So I could do this directly on my calculator here as well. Again, just put that equation here inside this, 2 minus 10 plus 3, and it gives you an exact answer as well. Okay. So, anyone with another version, you have it? ये कौन सा calculator है? Is it working on that as well? Decimals में दे रहा है? Check कर ले. आपको एग्जैक्ट आंसर मिलता है नहीं. So this is one answer. दूसरा answer जो है, that's 5 minus under root 19 over 2. That's the one that we're looking for. The value of n would be 19 here. So you could just, if you have this, you can just put this on your calculator, write down the answer directly from that. Can you show this to me? Decimal para? दिखाएं. Okay. So the earlier models are not giving an exact answer. Is पे आ रहा है? Okay. So some models will give it to you in exact form. Some models will not. So आप check कर लें if your model gives it. It's very helpful to actually have this calculator or similar version for SAT and also for A-level maths. इसका काफी फायदा होता है. So it's a good investment to make. या आप देख लें किसी senior से if you want to borrow as well. Because that's really helpful. अच्छा, ये तो आपको सब कुछ पता है. Equations कैसे solve करते हैं? Quadratic equations using factorization or quadratic formula. Now, this is very important. This is something that you do not study in over A levels generally. Sum and product of solutions. Now, we solved an equation earlier, which was this, for instance, x squared plus 5x minus 14 equal to 0. This was an equation that we solved earlier. We got 2 solutions from that, 2 and negative 7. Now, there's something that we call sum of roots or sum of solutions. All that means is you add up all the solutions. 2 and minus 7, add them up. What's the result that you get? Minus 5. So sum of roots for this function is minus 5. What about the product of roots? Product is 2 into negative 7, which is minus 14. If you have the solutions of an equation, you can find their sum and their product, right? Now, sometimes they will give you an equation and ask you to find the sum directly or find the product directly. Now, in that case, you don't have to solve the equation. We have direct formulas for sum of roots and product of roots. Okay, आप sum directly find कर सकते हो और product directly find कर सकते हो. Now, what are those formulas? These are two formulas that we have. If we have a function in this form, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, the sum of roots or the sum of the x-intercepts, let me write it like this instead, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. If you have this quadratic equation, the sum of roots is given by minus b over a. And the product of roots is given by c over a. Okay. Now, what was the example that we had earlier? X squared plus 5x minus 14 equal to 0. If you had to find the sum directly using these formulas, what would that be? Minus b over a. What does that give us? Minus 5 over 1, which is minus 5. And that's exactly what we got there as well, right? What about the product of roots? C over a. C is minus 14 divided by a in this case, which is 1, and that's minus 14. So without actually solving the equation, you can find the sum of solutions and the product of solutions directly. You should memorize these formulas. Sum of roots is minus b over a, product of roots is c over a for a quadratic function. Is that all right? Yes. कौन सा कैलकुलेटर है? इस पे नहीं होगा. ये वो सिर्फ क्लास क्विज में आता है. सिर्फ उसमें आता है. डेस्मॉस पे कर सकते हैं. आप डेस्मॉस पे ग्राफ sketch कर लें. You can just look at the graph and see what the turning point is. So we drew this graph here. Once you have this function, just click here on the turning point. It will show you the coordinates. Okay. Is this all right? Minus b over a and c over a, you should memorize these formulas. Now, the sum formula actually works for any polynomial. It works for cubic functions as well, power 4 functions as well. So for example, if you had ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d, this is a cubic function. The sum of roots for this function is also minus b over a. Okay? It might have 3 solutions. The sum of these 3 roots is also given by minus b over a. All right? It's not just for quadratic, it works for cubic as well. The product formula slightly changes, but it's not required for SAT, so we'll just skip that. But sum of roots works for any polynomial basically. Yes. What will be? A is the coefficient of the highest power. B is the coefficient of the second highest power. So if it's a cubic function, तो power 3 का जो coefficient है, that's A. Power 2 का coefficient is B. Make sense? Okay, let's move on. Let's look at this example very quickly. In fact, we did this. Sum of solutions minus b over a. That will be minus 5 over 1, which is minus 5. Right? Just apply that formula without actually solving the equation. What is the product of the solutions to this equation? Can anyone tell me this quickly? Product of roots of this function. Minus 4, because the product formula is just c over a. So that's minus 8 over 2, and that's minus 4. Okay, that's the product of roots. Is that okay? All right. Factors of a quadratic function. Now, let's have a look at this. One of the factors of this cubic function is x plus c, where c is a positive constant. What's the smallest positive value, the smallest possible value of c? Now, how do you think about this? Now, it's a cubic function. We are discussing quadratics. How is a quadratic function relevant here, you have to factorize this expression. How do you factorize this? Can we take x common? Because there's no constant term, right? We can take x common. If we take x common, that leaves us with 2x squared plus 42x plus 216. Is that okay? You could take 2 common outside as well if you wanted, but it's not necessary. Okay, so this is what we have. Now, can we factorize this further? We'll have to think about breaking the middle term if that's possible. Now, in fact, in order to break the middle term, it might make things easier if you take 2 common outside as well. So I would suggest you just do that. Take 2 common outside as well, and that will leave you with 2x, and then inside you have x squared plus 21x plus 108. Can we factorize this now? Can we factorize this? X plus 9 and x plus 12. So when you factorize this, it's x plus 9 and x plus 12. Now you have to be a bit careful if you're doing this on a calculator. So what you did was you solved this on your calculator. What was the equation that you solved? So if you just solved this function, if you just put this function inside, that gives you 42, 216. This gives you minus 9 and minus 12. So that gives you two factors, x plus 9 and x plus 12. What do you get when you multiply them? If you multiply these two, you get x squared plus 21x plus 108. You do not get this back. So when you're factorizing something, you have to be careful. If you're putting this on a calculator to find the factors, you'll have to make the coefficient of x squared 1 first of all. Otherwise, factorization might be slightly off. So 2x squared plus 42x plus 216 से भी वही आंसर्स आते हैं, इससे भी वही आंसर्स आते हैं कैलकुलेटर पे, लेकिन इसकी फैक्टराइजेशन जो होती, that would have been x into 2x plus 18 and x plus 12 rather than just x plus 9. If we take 2 common outside as well, then in that case we just have x plus 9 and x plus 12. So 2 आपको खुद से common लेना पड़ेगा अलग से, ठीक है? Yes. It's not an equation. It's not an equation. It's just an expression. Equation is when there's an equal to sign, we have something else on the other side. We don't have anything on the other side here. Just an expression. Okay. So how can you factorize this quickly now? The way to do that will be, you first take x common, and now this is the quadratic function that you're left with inside. If you want to do this on a calculator, take 2 common outside as well. Make the coefficient of x squared 1 first of all. Okay. That leaves you with 2x outside, and inside you have x squared plus 21x plus 108. And now put this on your calculator. That gives you x equal to 9, x equal to minus 9, and x equal to minus 12. What that means is, one factor is x plus 9 and the other factor is x plus 12. Is this all right? So the factorized form is 2x into x plus 9 into x plus 12. Okay, factorized to ho gaya. Now what's the answer to this question? What is it that they're asking about? What's the smallest possible value of c such that x plus c is a factor. We have two factors of that form, x plus 9 and x plus 12. In which of them is c smaller? So c is going to be 9. Smallest c is going to be 9. Is that okay? So we write 9 as the final answer. ये clear है? We do not compare -9 and -12. उनमें से तो -12 smaller है. We first have to convert them to factorized form and then look at these numbers. 9 और 12 में से कौन सा छोटा है? ठीक है? All right, let's move on. Now this is important. This is actually what we used above as well. If you have a quadratic function that has this x-intercept, x equals 1, what does that mean? X minus 1 is a factor of that function, right? X minus 1 is a factor of that function. What if the x-intercept that you're getting is this? So your calculator gives you 1/2 solution and 2/3 solution. What's the factor going to be? You can say it's x minus 1/2 and x minus 2/3, and that's perfectly okay. But another way to write that could be as 2x minus 1 and 3x minus 2 instead. So often when we factorize expressions, we want to avoid fractions. X equals 1/2 आपका आ सकता है 2x minus 1 से भी और x minus 1/2 से भी. Both of them give you the same value of x. We prefer the one that does not have a fraction, 2x minus 1. Okay, similarly, 2/3 can come from x minus 2/3, and it can also come from 3x minus 2. We prefer the one that is without a fraction. So mostly in the expressions that they give in the options, they would have factors like this and this instead. Is that okay? Okay. What if you have a square root in an equation like this? How do you solve this equation? Under root x plus 5 plus 1 equals x. You take square on both sides? Take square on both sides like this? If you do it like this, it will make it very complicated. Left side को expand करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा. So the first thing you should do here is you should take 1 on the right to the right side. So it becomes under root x plus 5 equals x minus 1. And now you square both sides. Okay? अगर स्क्वायर रूट 1 के ऊपर भी होता, स्क्वायर रूट ऑफ 1 तो 1 ही होता है, वो तो वैसे ही वैलिड हो जाता. वो तो वैसे खत्म हो जाता, स्क्वायर रूट खत्म हो जाता. और आर यू सेइंग इट वाज लाइक दिस? फिर तो आप उसको डायरेक्टली स्क्वायर कर सकते थे, बिकॉज देन इट वाज ऑन द होल थिंग. सो आई थॉट यू वर सेइंग अगर इस तरह होता फिर तो वो स्क्वायर. या सो इफ इट वाज ऑन द होल थिंग देन यू जस्ट टेक स्क्वायर डायरेक्टली. लेकिन इस केस में मुश्किल होएगा, बिकॉज if you were to take square like this, right side pe to you'll get x square, but on the left side you'll have to apply a plus b whole squared, treating this as a and this is b. A squared is going to be okay because that's just x plus 5. B squared is also okay because that's just 1. But 2 into a into b, उसमें square root फिर भी रह जाएगा आपका, तो वो खत्म नहीं होएगा फिर. Okay. So this is what you should do first. You should take 1 to the other side and then you square both sides. On the left side you have x plus 5. On the right side you have x squared minus 2x plus 1. Take everything to one side. X squared minus 3x minus 4 equal to 0. Put this on your calculator and see what that gives you. Sorry? 4 and 1. Okay. X equals 4 and minus 1. Okay, but remember we discussed something. Whenever you square something, whenever you square an equation, you should always check if the answers work. Because square करने से कभी कभी आपके पास extra answers आ जाते हैं. Do both of these values work here? Are both solutions correct? Which one is wrong? -1 does not satisfy the equation. अब -1 input करते हैं, you get 3 on the left side and -1 on the right side, which is not correct. So when you square equations, you always need to check your answers, because sometimes you can end up getting an extra solution. You have to check the answers. Is that okay? So the only answer to this equation is x equal to 4. Whenever we square an equation, we discussed this in one of our earlier classes, that whenever you square an equation, you always have to verify your answers at the end. You input x equals 4 in the equation and see what that gives you. X equals 4 gives you 4 equal to 4. Both sides will satisfy. When you input x equal to 1 in that equation, sorry, -1, that gives you 3 on the left side and -1 on the right side. That's not correct. Sorry. Okay, we discussed the reason for this as well, why this happens, because when you square things and minus or plus जो हैं, they become equivalent, right? तो उसकी वजह से you end up having problems like these. Okay, let's have a look at this. X plus 1 whole squared plus 5 into x plus 1 minus 24 equals 0. How would you solve this equation? How do you solve this equation? One idea is that you expand the whole thing, right? So it becomes x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus 5x plus 5 minus 24 equal to 0. And that gives you x squared plus 7x minus 18 equal to 0. Now put this on your calculator and see what that gives you. We can also use a substitution here, and that will make this much quicker. We have x plus 1 here, and we have x plus 1 here. If we use this substitution, let's say u equals x plus 1, this leaves us with u square plus 5u minus 24 equal to 0. Put this on your calculator directly. What are the values of u that you get? u की values क्या आती हैं? 3 and -8. These are the values of u that we have. Now, what was u? U was x plus 1, so that means x plus 1 equals 3, or x plus 1 equals -8, so x equals 2 or x equals -9. These are the two solutions that you get here. Okay. Now, in this case, it does not look like this is going to be much more difficult than this. However, you will find cases जहाँ पे इसको इस तरह expand करके solve करना is going to be more difficult as compared to taking a substitution like this. So when is substitution helpful? When you have an expression that is repeating. So you have x plus 1 here, you have x plus 1 here. In cases like these, you can think of whether substitution might make it slightly easier. Okay, no problem. Okay, let's say we have this equation. It passes through the point m and 6m. What's the value of m? How do you figure this out? There's an equation that passes through a particular point. We can just put that point in the equation, right? It should satisfy the equation. If we put that here, we get 6m equal to m squared plus 2m minus 12. Solve this equation and you get the result. M squared minus 4m minus 12 equal to 0. You can see what the solutions turn out to be. Put this on a calculator. 6 and minus 2. All right. So this is what you need to know about solving quadratic equations. Sometimes you can plug in points back in the equation to find the result.